Hello, this is Chase. Approximately an hour and a half post ingestion of a chocolate peanut butter edible. Um, the marijuana count, do not laugh at me, was 10 milligrams, which I'm aware is a starter dose, and it's gotten me pretty high. So, but don't make fun of me, because I'm new to this, alright? This is something I worry about. I'm the worst part about being high and getting high and like really starting to do marijuana for the first time in my life um, so late. Where was I going with this? I Because I didn't start smoking marijuana in high school and I only started ingesting it, recently. I never had the phase in my life where I was able to sort of get out of it. I like get out of talking about it all the time and like being incoherent. So I'm fully aware. Like I notice, I notice how much I've been talking about weed in the past like 3 recordings sessions. So the last like Pikmin and then it was Pikmin and then the podcast and then also the tweet I made on podcast about the podcast on Twitter about no about the fact that I got high on the podcast or that I got high and so I couldn't edit the podcast. But because of that, I or like I know that I'm talking about it a lot. I promise I'm not going to be a annoying weed guy. I've never. This is new to me, and I'm excited to talk about it because that's just how I sort of interface with the world. Is I give my opinion, and I sort of add to the gigantic, nasty soup of human information, human record. Which isn't to say it's a bad nasty soup. I would say Campbell's chicken noodle soup is kind of nasty. It's like the Taco Bell of chicken noodle soup. But it's still like a good nasty soup. That's like nasty that I can depend on. Kind of like your mama. But I don't. So I'm just enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. I don't remember where I was going with that. So the first thing to note is that I do. Okay. I should say this is specifically a test to see if my flow of consciousness is hindered in any way by inebriation or if it's enhanced. Because typically, I would probably if I were like put in a controlled test and just say, hey, talk about just like record a 30-minute podcast by yourself, then I would probably consciously choose to make the subjects or the whatever I talked about not relate to myself unless anecdotally. I wouldn't talk about I would talk about something I did, not something I am, or not, a way that I work. Because I feel like that's not very good. Like that, that kind of becomes a therapy session. My sort of inner performer naturally wants to get away from that. And so I'm wondering now, in this sort of stream of consciousness, if I'll become less aware of myself in some capacity, or if I will still be able to, if I will be able to consciously choose to make the same decisions that I would if I was not inebriated, or would my sort of primary faculties, my primary mental faculties shut down, my sort of inhibitional line of defense. I don't know if inhibitional is a word, but of inhibitions, line of defense, like torn down. So this is, in my opinion, a sort of test of that. I don't know how long, like what the time it was between when I started that sort of sentence and when I ended it, or that idea of this being a test. I don't know how long that was. It felt like maybe 2 minutes, but I don't know. I sort of had this theory that I was more physically aware of time passing when I got high. Because I remember, it's such an odd thought, but I remember thinking, I started doing something at like 9:47, and then I finished doing that at 9:49, and I noted it both times, and I had the very conscious and sort of highlighted thought, yeah, that felt like about 2 minutes, you know. When usually I would not, typically note that kind of passage of time, unless it were in a negative sort of context where it would be like, oh, there's 25 minutes of fucking jury left. I was gonna say I have class, but I didn't want to be so juvenile because I'm not in school anymore. Um, we'll just say, when I was a kid, I would think like, oh wow, okay, so okay, it's 25 minutes to the end of class, all right, and then I would do some work, and then I would look up again, and it's like, it's 23 minutes now. I thought like that felt like 15 minutes. That couldn't have been 3 minutes. Even just going back to that, like that idea, there's almost some comfort in that. It feels like maybe, it feels like, because everybody thinks their childhood was so short, right? I feel like when you sort of reaccess those moments of tedium, you start to realize just how long your childhood was, and I would urge you to do that if you could. Yeah, I would say just go back to those moments that felt like hours, because there's more of them than you think there are consciously. They're not all of them are noteworthy. How many times do you think, oh, there's only 25 minutes left of blank, in any given day, or at least when you did when you were a child, so what's the point of cataloging each individual instance of that? That seems silly. As a result, your childhood, or the memory of your childhood, was truncated to a brief few slices of extreme action, you know littered about long summaries of long periods of time of things that happened to you and affected you on a more macro basis. Like, for example, I could say, yeah, I don't remember a lot between when I was 8 and 9, but it's almost like in the clock that is my life, the entire year 8 to year 9 section, while there are only a few slivers in there that are truly colored in, there's like still highlight there, and that highlight represents the time that my father was in prison. So a time marker, I guess, or context against which to view time. So when you're going back and remembering your childhood, you might be tempted to say like, oh well, there's plenty. There were so many, like, so much. I remember so much. When I don't think you do. I think you just remember larger checkpoints. Like you remember the large events in and of themselves. You'd fool yourself into thinking that you actually remember more than you do, because those sort of markers are just as arbitrary as the what counts as what a kid is anymore. At what point do you draw that line? Do you draw it, when you turn from 12 to 13, and so you have to officially have teen in your name, would be a very, cold method? Or would you say when you get your, it's when you get your driver's license, 16, or even your fucking permit, 16 to 17, 18. And so those, to view those as events in and of themselves, and to fool yourself into this idea that you remember more than you actually do practically, it's silly. It's like saying like, oh, I remember, I sorted out all my homework, from all 6 years of primary school. If you give me a specific math test, I'll be able to find it. And then getting to like the grade 4, it's like, I want grade 4, the grade 4 test where you were doing where you had to multiply 27 times 6.5 or whatever, and you'd be like, oh, I know where that is, and then you'd open up grade 4, and then you would point at a broad general area of of where you were doing division or multiplication or whatever the fuck I said. And that's not, you're not whittling it down enough. You whittled it down enough to where you sort of assigned this arbitrary larger figure, and just assuming that as one of its subsets, it is counted as part of the whole. So what I'm saying is to think of it in that way would be sort of useless and betray the whole experiment. realistically, you do not remember most of your childhood, and that's not a bad thing because that's just how life is, you know. And to say, oh well, now it's sad when I think about it that way. That's why, because you added a label to it. Who fucking cares? You're gonna continue experiencing life the same exact way. Chances are. So don't be a fucking weepy little bitch about it. You know, just get over it. It's like, it's kind of how I feel about like the fear of death, because I don't want to die. Obviously, you know, I'm fucking 23, almost 24 years old. I got a lot of life left to live on average. Um, and so, you know, naturally I have that sort of survival instinct. Like, oh no, I haven't reproduced yet. I haven't fucking. My phone just lit up. What the fuck who's texting me? Oh, it's my sister. I'm sorry I didn't respond last time I reached out, but like, what's new? Fuck. Okay, well I'll talk to my sister. It's only been 10 minutes. That's crazy. I'll talk to my sister after this. What was I saying? Oh yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Obviously, I'm afraid of death in a very practical, literal, logical, sort of feral sense. But like, what is that going to do for me practically? Like, who gives a shit? It's not like it's not going to make the next time I jack off feel worse or whatever. Like, it is not practical for me to focus on that fear. You know, so I kind of got past it. And then you have fucking pussies like Justin Roiland saying, well, oh yeah, I'm so fucking scared to death. Like, get over it, pussy. Like, who cares? You would live potentially a better life if you weren't so afraid of death. For all the fucking stress it's giving you. Like, imagine how much funnier Rick and Morty would be if you weren't such a bitch. You know? Oh, man. I've what was I going to say? That entire time I was thinking about that, I was thinking about something else too, and I was like, oh, this is going to be great, I'll talk about this later. But I just sort of, I have a tendency to forget things. I've been told that there's like self-help books that is like, you know, hey, this is how you maintain your memory. And then it's like, every time you want to make a memory, go to a big funny house in your brain and then create an object. I like to put a cookie on a cookie plate for things I need to remember, and then I associate that thing with another thing. That way, when you go back to find memories, and you have twice as much of a chance to remember this one, like that, like shit like that, you know. And then you remember, and then you're allegedly you remember at least. Scarlett's coming up to join me on the top of the bed. She usually lays down near my legs, but now she's up near my chest and she's leaning into me. I don't know. I've been talking a lot about probability recently, or not recently, in this so far. I also hope that this isn't. I hope this people aren't like, oh, this is fake. Chase is faking this, because first one, what would I have to gain from that when it's so easy for me to just get high, and the bar of quality is so low for what is put on this channel. You know, you'd assume that the two, you know, data sets would meet somewhere in the middle, pretty quickly. Anyway, because I am high, and that's something I've thought about, is that it kind of goes back to the thing I was talking about at the beginning of this, which is that when it comes to like fear, you know, about when getting high, it's like, oh, you ever smoke so much you get so fucking high, or you ever get so high you get scared, like that meme. That's true for me, but like only 30% of that is actually like, oh, my heart, why does my heart feel like this? Am I gonna die? You know, and 70% of that is me being like, oh my god, am I talking too much? is getting high worth it if I'm annoying people this much? I'm sort of inflicting the burden that is me tenfold on these poor fucking people. That is the fear that I fear when I get so high I get scared. And right now I'm at a point where I would be scared of that if I were like in a call or something, like in a voice chat call, with like, you know, 3 or 4 other people, or even more. Probably not. If there was more than like 6 people, I probably wouldn't be able to get a fucking word in edgewise. But I digress. If I sort of had the attention, I feel like, oh, I've been talking too much, no matter what, no matter how much I talked and how much I let other people into the conversation. But luckily I'm not in a voice chat right now. But these thoughts have been pretty coherent. I gotta say, I've noted the last like 3 or 4 of them I've been able to just bang 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 one after the other. Well, I say that and I've just lost my place in my thought. Something about friend groups. Oh yes, but because I'm not talking in a voice chat right now. It's a lot easier, and I have the relaxing thought of, okay, well, if I record this now and I go back to edit it tomorrow and it sounds bad, I can just delete it. So it doesn't really matter. The only thing I'm sort of wasting is my time, and even then, I'm sort of enjoying this interesting sort of trying to think of a word less pretentious than soiree. This own little journey into my mind. Yeah, that's a lot less pretentious by saying journey into my mind instead of soiree into my mind. Like, shut up, bitch. Anyway, it's kind of entertaining in and of itself because I've never spoken out loud like this before while high. I typically just sort of close my eyes and like obviously I'll start by like watching videos as I fade into it, but at a certain point it's like I gotta pause this video and just lay the fuck down. And I don't go to sleep either. I just sort of let my mind wander in really weird directions. And a very frequent direction that it typically wanders in is that of church, but not really like the actual belief, more like the structure it presented and the sort of habits it would form, the familiar sights I would see. Not so much concepts like, oh, what did Joseph Smith do upon the mountain high, or fucking whatever. I couldn't give a rat's ass about that because that's not the shit I paid attention to. In church, I paid attention to patterns and behaviors and typical things that you would see in church because that's the sort of language I understood. I didn't understand so much more like metaphorical or literary storylines. I recognized the data in front of me. I'm also beginning to realize this sounds pretentious again, but that's something I worry about all the time, not just when I'm high. I typically I sometimes choose smaller words than I would just because I'm like, they're gonna make fun of me if I say this. But what was I saying? Hang on. Oh yeah, okay, I remember. I had to climb back up the rope of thoughts that I've been descending down to remember that I was talking about church. So yeah, no, I sort of I remembered church as what made sense to me. And I think I don't know if I would call them hallucinations, but I get like visions. Well, it only happens when I close my eyes. Well, sometimes not, but um, I sort of when I first started getting high, however many months ago, it was just like patterns. I would just make up patterns in my brain and like not like literal like draw on a paper pattern. A really common one that I remember, I don't remember exactly what it was. Oh fuck! I just realized what it was. Okay, so I thought it was like a weird shape. It's like a sort of imagine how a bell starts at the top and at the top it's kind of round and then it kind of goes around and then inward a little bit, kind of going back towards the middle and then back out into the the bell end, like which there's also something called penis. Imagine that chopped in half, and then like a sort of bar graph line is put on the left side of that, so that the bottom and the whatever side of the shit you chopped off, the parallel line that was the cut line, has something up against it. So you put it on this bar graph, and then sort of put another bar graph below that bar graph, and then have the sort of lines of the graphs intersect a little bit. That was a pattern that I would typically see, and this is just something that I invented in my mind. I'm pretty sure this doesn't actually have anything, or I didn't up until this point, where I thought it was like, oh, okay, in school, when I would be reading a textbook, because they were sort of juvenile textbooks, they would have little fun facts at the top left corners of every page, just so they have a little something to focus on. Instead of just like fucking history fact after history fact after history fact, it would be like I'd be reading about the fucking settler pioneers in Oregon, and then at the top right of the page it'd be like, hey, do you know Poop Fuckler, the big stupid idiot pioneer? He always fell into rivers, and each and every one that they named 7 after him, so you can go to different poop fucker rivers all over the United States. That's like a fun little fact that sort of doesn't it deviates too far off the main course to really call it important enough for everybody who's going to the compulsive primary school to know. But it sort of allows that like little fun facts that you never would have gotten to, so you get to learn the story of Poop Fuckler, who fell into every river because he was a big dumb idiot. So that's sort of what it was supposed to be, like a little story or a little tidbit or a little anecdote or whatever up in those the corner of every page. And that's what I thought it was, and I sort of associated with that with church because church was also in my mind associated with sort of early school and grade school. I'd have to contend after school activities with like church activities like fireside on Thursdays, and seminary, which is what I would go to every morning at 5 a.m. in when I was in high school. So those two kind of all the way through high school, those things were inextricably linked, at least up until freshman or sophomore year of high school for me. Anyway, but no, what I'm realizing now is that in the back of every hymnal book in Mormon church, there's like a little glossary with like different notation facts, and like here's what a quarter note is, here's what a half note is, here's what a full note is. Um, uh, uh, and one of those things is different gestures, or like the leading gestures, the directors, or what's the guy who holds up the baton? Conductor. The conductor. So how you like move your hand if you're the conductor. And I'm realizing that I think, and I'll put this on screen now if this makes the final cut and I can find a comparison. I think that shape that I was envisioning was a portion of some of the conductor's sort of motions. I wonder, which is sort of an interesting through line. I think another one is that there's I want to say three or four important colors that specifically are in line with and this is going to sound weird, the little pamphlets that you'd get at the beginning. Fellow previous Mormons in church, you know what I'm talking about. You get them at funerals and at weddings. They sort of direct you like, okay, this time we're doing this, and then after that we're doing this, and after that we're doing this, and then we're gonna sing this song, which you can find on this page. Those little fucking directories or proceedings. I don't know what you would call them, but you'd get a little fucking pamphlet of those at the beginning of each church visit. So I think the colors have to do with them, because I think different colors indicated different things for different church times. So like I think the primary time was like brown, and it had a symbol of like I want to say a house in the distance on a grassy hill with sometimes like sunflowers around it, but it was all like gray, and it's a lot like more simple too. I'll to the very best of my ability try to draw it while I'm sober when I'm editing this, because God fucking knows I'm not going to send this out high. But this is sort of the best I can do to sort of describe these things. Chase, if you're editing this now, it's sort of like a lighthouse with a pentagonal or hexagonal, not pentagonal. Well, maybe pentagonal to octagonal shape at the top instead of like a circle. And then inside there is a 1, 2, 3 hexagon. I was counting the sides, or the sides of half of it, so that I'd be able to double it to know what the full shape size of it was. Put a hexagon with a smaller hexagon inside. The top of the hexagon is sort of brown, and the bottom is sort of light brown, which is the primary sort of distinction between the two monotonous colors. And then it was like sort of something on the top and something on the bottom of the smaller hexagon inside of it. I hope that makes sense. And then the next one was sort of like, it was blue. The typical big arrangements were sort of brown and then blue on the inside, brown being the cover, blue being the inside. But every time I think there was with blue, it was like it's almost like a car, a silhouette of a car. But like spongy, like it's got like a spongy texture, but in the same way that like SpongeBob has a spongy texture, which is just like a wavy outline, I guess. But it's like a car, and it's like it's zoomed in at different lengths, but it's like sitting on the top of like an egg, or like the top half of an egg, and it's like sort of going down the sides of the egg within the picture, which is another hexagon, I think. If you want to draw this, by the way, put it in the Discord. I'd love to see that. Or just like at me on Twitter. The hashtag, if you want to draw, or if you want to try to draw the figures I'm describing here, which I think will be quite difficult for you, then you can use the hashtag. You can use hashtag. I'm trying to think of one that's like catchy but not cheesy, and one that certainly people have never used before, which is tough, but it's something you got to do. Hashtag fuck, hashtag. I thought hashtag burn unit, but I'm pretty sure that's just a fucking like sect of the SWAT or some shit, or like the CIA or whatever. Hashtag hashtag tokens of his memories, because each individual thing that I'm presenting to you is like on a token. It's like a nice little neat little token. So hashtag tokens of his memories, or tokens memories, tokens of memories. Hashtag tokens of memories, and try to draw the things that I'm describing. I'm getting better and better at getting back to the things I was talking about when I branch out. Hashtag tokens of memories. Try to draw the things I'm describing. So I give you the first two, the brown one and the blue one, and then just jumping right back in. Typically the insides were blue, and you would have all the different, like the people. They were typically folded into thirds. And the front was like the cover, the middle was usually empty, and then the back was like the people who to thank, like I guess the credits. You don't have to draw that part. You just have to draw the symbols. Anyway, so on top of the brown and blue, I believe there was also green and yellow, which acted as a sort of different one. Green being the exterior, so the more regular one, and the yellow being the interior, less common one. I'm for the sort of hues. For how I have to pee really bad. For how they were in church, I would say they're like sort of a more beigey and like dusty milk coffee brown. And then for the blue, it's like sort of a muted, like the sort of really intense blue, like the blue jeans blue, like intense, like bright denim blue that is like one in the default MS Paint palette. It's like that, but then like printed out on a piece of paper, and then you take a picture of that piece of paper in like a really bright room, so it just sort of gets washed out a little bit, the color. Those are sort of the typical colors, but then like when represented on like a web page or just anywhere where you can get brighter, more dense colors, which is an atypical place to see them, but it's sort of like more like the Nickelodeon orange and blue, but like really really intense. So like the orange, the bright cheesy orange of the orange part would be like really like hot orange, like almost red, and then the blue is like that sort of like summer fun time pool blue, sort of again similar to the default one, but then like that getting so fucking intense and bright that sort of becomes like when you go to the top corner of like a hue picker, when it can become like more faded or darker. It's like at the top right where it's like it's most intense, it's the most bright, it's the most vibrant, it's the most saturated. That blue, like intense, like almost like dark blue, almost like something you wouldn't even be able to see on a screen, like just sort of that neon, but like scary neon. That sort of blue. I have to pee. I don't know how long I'll be able to do this without needing to stop to go pee. But like stopping to go pee right now seems like a monumental task. I'm gonna be completely honest, because Scarlett's laying on me and I'm really comfy in bed and I'm in this sort of flow state. And I don't know if it would be a good idea. I'm gonna break it. I don't fucking care, because now I'm thinking like no matter what, I'm still gonna have to break it eventually. What am I gonna do otherwise? Piss the fucking bed? No, idiot. So I'm gonna get up right now. Ooh. I'm gonna come out into the hallway. And I'm coming into the bathroom. I'm gonna pee real quick, and maybe I'll edit this part out. But maybe I won't. We just don't know. I'm breathing kind of intensely. It's not that intense of a task. I'm just waiting for the pee to come out. Tokens of his memories. The tokens of memories. Hashtag. I've been wearing my own clothes I've been wearing which one was it? Buddy the Clown. I've been wearing my Buddy the Clown shirt a lot. Scarlett, come on. Because it's really good. It's a good shirt. And I've never really been into bright shirts. I've always been into like white shirts and black shirts, and that. Scarlett, come on. And nothing really bright. But this is like a bright yellow, and like I've been enjoying it. I've been really enjoying it a lot. I don't know if some of that is just like the confidence of wearing clothing that I designed. Which is probably backed up by the fact that I've gotten like 4 compliments on this shirt. 2 on the same day. But like I don't know, it just makes me. It makes me feel confident. I'm not. This isn't like an advertisement. I mean, obviously it's an advertisement. Go to fucking clowndepot.store. You can find it, the Buddy the Clown shirt. But it's also like true. I'm not like. No part of me was like, I'm gonna pretend to get high for 20 minutes and then advertise my clothes to them because I think that'll be funny. No, it's not an anecdote. I mean, it is an anecdote. It is not. If this gets, I don't even know how many sales we have right now. I stopped paying attention to the sales because I figured nobody, like everybody who bought one is gonna buy one. I'm not paying attention to this. Anyway, so don't worry about that. Scarlett's licking my hand right now. She's very slimy. It's when she licks like all over my hand, it's fine. But when she licks like the same spot too much, it starts to feel like raw, not like painful raw. Like this is a welt up raw. But like it starts to feel like a fucking actual undersea creature is up against my fucking arm, and that gets too skeezy for me. So I typically kind of, because she's gonna lick no matter what, she's gonna lick something. And I prefer she not lick the carpet or my bed because there's a lot of fucking her hair in the carpet and the bed, and I don't want her to get fur balls or like get indigestion or whatever. So if she's gonna lick, she can lick my hands. I don't give a shit. And my feet sometimes, which is a lot of people when I say oh my dog loves to lick my feet, people are like, oh, you let your dog lick your feet, you pervert. It's not for me. It's for her. Which sounds like an excuse a pervert would say, but I promise it's not. It's true. I'm not a pervert. Red, green, and blue. Primary colors. Or red, yellow, and blue, some might say, but those people are fucking idiots. Because red is pretty close to yellow, but it's also pretty close to green. But it's closer to yellow than it is to green. Red. Because green is the middle place between red and blue. And red is the middle place between red and yellow? I don't know. No, red, or yellow and orange. And then orange and red. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Yeah, indigo, violet. We're good. I found it. I was trying to get myself to cry earlier today, and I couldn't remember like sad enough memories, or at least like because it was like trying to remember your saddest memory on 0 go. It was like countdown from 10. 10 you're happy. 0 you're like a really sad memory like your grandpa died, and like I did that, and my grandpa died, so like I had the same bucket she was fucking pulling from, in terms of motivation to cry. But, maybe my happy was just wasn't happy enough. Maybe she lives like a fucking phenomenal life. Anyway, I couldn't do it because in my mind I was like, yeah, I know, I already reconciled with these thoughts. Like, I don't give a shit about this anymore. Like, I don't know, it's not going to affect me anymore. Like, Grandpa's fucking dead. Well, what about all the fucking conversations I wish I had with him? Yeah, fucking what if, idiot? What if the world was made of pudding? Shut up. Anyway, if it's like an open and shut case like that, obviously, that's something I'm thinking of. If it's something more malleable, obviously, it'll sort of take up more of my mental real estate, but, that remains to be seen. That's on a case-by-case basis. I don't remember what I was talking about. My grandpa, I was lying, maybe, about something at some point. I don't think so, or at least I don't remember. Was I? No, I wasn't. I don't think I've lied at any point during this. I feel like the lying is too much of conscious effort. The conscious effort we were talking about before, where it's like I make a conscious effort not to talk about myself. And obviously I haven't been fucking doing that at all. But luckily I'm keeping it to the sort of outermost layer of my actual immediate thoughts and not so much my inner thoughts. Because, like, I'm telling you what I'm thinking. That is no lie. But I'm not telling you why I'm thinking it. Which, sort of begs into question how much I'm actually thinking about it. But, it also sort of begs the question, at what point do you draw that threshold between conscious decision and unconscious decision, or conscious decision versus unconscious decision, and learned decision, or learned decision making, I guess, because, there's a, when I speak in conversation, there's the very sort of top layer of purposeful speech, but then there's a secondary layer of like why I think those specific words I said were purposeful, and sort of where I got that belief system from. And, that sort of builds on if I built it myself or if somebody else got it, it just sort of goes down from there. There's a bunch of different levels, like 7 different levels of breaking that down. But like, to sort of avoid that, I'm staying at the topmost layer, which is my, what I'm doing. Or no, the sort of layer above that, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. And like, that's as deep as I'm going. I'm not saying why I'm explaining it in this way or what my motivation is for this video. I'm sort of talking about myself. But I'm able to sort of maintain enough forward momentum with my thoughts and my train of thought that there's no points where I'm stumbling or mumbling or anything, and I'm just sort of going on to new thoughts and new thoughts and new thoughts, Whereas if I perhaps was being a little bit more focused with what I was trying to emit, say, I didn't want to talk about myself or what I was thinking about, and I just wanted to talk about things that already happened, or like, whatever, like fucking listing shit off like colors. I'm less focused on cutting things out of what I can. I'm less focused on what I can't say, and more focused on what I can say. In this case, I can say a lot, and this is, I think, typically how my thought process goes. Is that it's not really there's a lot of branches, but I'm not really exploring many of them. I'm just sort of saying, like, check out this branch, and then we go forward onto another branch. And there's a lot more stuff that I could probably talk about more in detail, but this is just sort of the point at which it goes. I remember a very early point in my life. I think the first time I consciously did it was in 2nd grade. Was I sort of let my mind wander, and something I realized is that my mind wandering is not a completely isolated system. Obviously, what I learned was that there was little like flicks into motion. So I wouldn't be paying attention to my thought process. I'd just be thinking, and then at some point I'd catch myself like thinking about like cowboys. I'd be thinking like, what the fuck am I talking? What am I thinking about cowboys? And then I would, it was 2nd grade. I think we were watching a movie, and so I was like, okay, well, cowboys. And I think I remember I was thinking about cowboys because I was thinking about purple bandanas, and I think I was thinking about purple bandanas because I was thinking about the city, and like gangs. And maybe I was thinking about cities and gangs because I was thinking about a History Channel documentary I saw. And, maybe I was thinking about the History Channel because I was thinking about educational, or like, channels that are for, like, adults instead of kids. Or, I guess, like, families. And the reason I was thinking about family channels is because I was thinking about family movies. And, sort of the movies that, you can watch. And the reason I was thinking about movies is because I was thinking about Minions: The Rise of Gru. And because, like, that's like a big meme that's going on right now. And the reason I was thinking about Minions: The Rise of Gru is because I was thinking about stockholder meddling in animation. Because, like, I've got a lot of friends, in animation, and I see a lot of people retweet, maybe not, like, directly working for Netflix people, but, like, people who are friends with people who have worked for Netflix people. And they're always tweeting shit about executive meddling. Maybe I was thinking about executive meddling because I was thinking about economy, and I was thinking about, like, people who buy stocks and that shit, because the movie that we're watching in class is about like the economy, and like maybe it's like a branch off of a documentary that we're learning about the branches of Congress or fucking whatever. So like at no point is the input, at no point am I completely isolated from input. Maybe if I smuggle in a thought to that class. So, but I enter the class, and that the threshold of entering the class is the arbitrary place that I put down the point where it's like, okay, I can't be stimulated by anything in here. I have to ignore absolutely everything, and I smuggle in a thought. Well, where did I get smuggled in the thought from? Maybe I'm thinking about something I've been thinking about because it's been, it was like a month ago. It's like, okay, this thing's happening today, and I didn't think about it up until that morning. And so, like, I smuggled that thought in, that thought that, sort of, like, I didn't realize I was thinking it until I was. Um, but that, that's just because I was thinking about something, an immediate stimulus, in November or whatever. Like, when I started that thought, I didn't think about it up until the point. Um, so it's just like a sort of a tree that leads into a set, like or an Ouroboros. Not necessarily an Ouroboros, because an Ouroboros goes in circles, and I'm just zooming out, out and out and out until infinitum, like a fractal. um, it's not because I'm like, oh, I'm fucking high, I'm trippy. What about shiny rocks? It's because this is actually, sort of the best way to convey the information that I'm trying to communicate. Um. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah. So conscious thought. It's always influenced by outside thought, right? And I can observe everything that's going on, but I can't. I can't. I can't pay attention to and intuit literally everything that's going on. So I interpret mass amounts of information, and then my brain picks out the important information and then throws everything else out. And that's why I typically sort of assume a sentence is one thing when I heard another thing and I came to the wrong conclusion. It's because I filter out information that my brain immediately deems as unimportant in favor of information that my brain does think is important, which may just come down to what is more interesting to me at the time. And I think I picked that up from Homestuck, because there was too much fucking reading, and I had ADHD, and so I figured out, just like, I'll skim over the paragraphs, and I'll pick out, like, oh, Carcat said fucking Gamzee Tavros die, and so I just assumed, like, hey, maybe they both died, or maybe one of them killed the other, and then I just sort of come to my assumptions, and then my assumptions are proven right or wrong in the next page when I'm given more information, or perhaps a little funny picture to indicate what just happened. Thanks a lot, Andrew Huss, you big fucking jerk. Fucking jerk, I hate you. So I would arbitrarily choose what I don't want to say out loud. But now that's sort of removed. I'm not thinking about any exterior thing that would, I'm not realizing that I'm thinking about cowboys and then trace it back to because we're watching an economy video in class. Because there's no point at which my current thought process is like probed and intersected by a secondary thought, or like a meta thought, or like a thought about that thought, or a thought, sort of that's just sort of that's not really a thought so much as an internal checklist of things that I've been keeping in my mind, sort of observing my own behavior. It's just self-contained, self-continuing, an entire thought going from point A to point B. There's no previous branches that are coming up. There's no, let me get back to that real quick, or, to make a long story short, because, that's not the aim. The aim is to continue walking in a forward, motion. It's not to see how efficiently I can get back from point A to point B to point A again. It's just to see how far away I can make point A and point B. Point B being the place that I stopped talking. And the place where I stopped talking probably being when I convince myself I've probably talked enough, and then I check how much time is going on. Let's see how much time has elapsed since I started. I got another text, or perhaps it is the same text from my brother. Oh, I also have a text from Duke. I've been going for 43 minutes. Fuck me. Let's go for another minute and 10 seconds, because then it will be a 45 minutes, and I feel like that's a good place to stop. So the reason I've been able to have such a thorough through line with this is because I haven't been letting previous thoughts get into the forefront of my mind. I haven't concerned myself with something so much that I sort of humored myself and allowed myself to go down this branching path that might not be so much important as much as it is just interesting to me personally. And then saying, okay, well, I promise I'll get back to this part, soon. I promise to reconnect these two dots as soon as I possibly can, and then get back on the right track. I can't do that. I'm not allowing myself to do that. I'm just going with what I give enough of a shit to be talking about at any given time. And it just so happens that I can't usually do that because my brain is often I often find at worst times I don't think I just have ADHD. I think I have something worse, because at the worst of times I can feel like I'm purposefully fighting with my consciousness to stay on track. I think that's the point. I think that's why I tell so many jokes, is because it's like I'm proving to myself that I'm able to pay attention and I'm able to be lucid. At the worst of times, I'm battling with my own self-actualization, with my own lucidity. It's like I'm going into fucking sleep mode. And the thing that sucks about going into sleep mode is that I can't interact with the world around me, and my brain just shuts off. It goes off into its own directions. So at the worst of times, I feel like that. At the best of times, I can just feel like a normal person on the outermost layer of my skin, not sort of slipping back into myself, in a cloying attempt to stay relevant and stay in the moment, stay where I think everybody else is. And so that's sort of why I prove to myself, that's why I'm so active, is because I need to like keep slapping myself awake, lest I fall back into this conscious coma. I don't remember why I was talking about that. It seems like a depressing note to end on. Is that just me? Like, I'm fine. Like, obviously, I've gotten this far in life. I just, it's less of like, oh, this is why I'm so pathetic, and more of like, oh, I wonder how great I could have been. It's interesting. It's more interesting to me to focus on, what I might be capable of in a world where I'm slightly less mentally ill, and more of, and less it's less about me beating myself up because, oh, well, look how how far I've fallen, and blaming that on myself. um yeah. So what I'm saying is that it's not actually that sad, because I'm still quite content with what I've made for myself. It's just, I still wonder if, like, maybe this is a thing that I can talk to a therapist about and get fixed, but I digress. I'm on bupropion now, which is good. I'm gonna see. Okay, see, now I'm starting to I think this is the interesting part. I think I knew it was gonna come to this, where I was gonna start saying something like depressing or sad or like too personal. But like, it wasn't so much a matter of will I, and it was more of like, when will I do it? And I think, I found my answer about 46 and a half minutes in, I think, is where I started talking about that. I do wonder if I'll keep that in. I sort of feel like that is a sort of, I feel like I've had interesting moments of self-realization during this, Nothing mind-blowing. Nothing like, oh, I'm an enlightened yogi, which is, what I assume a lot of people, when they're high, think of themselves. But it's like, it's interesting. I was talking to Robbie about this, before we even said, okay, we're not going to record the podcast tonight, is I said, when I'm high, I don't have, I still have control over my thoughts, but it's a different kind of control over my thoughts. It is, it's like control over my thoughts in a completely different pilot's room than, my typical control over my thoughts. And so it's not so much, I don't think that it's worse or it's better. I don't think like, oh, I write my best material when I'm high. I wouldn't go that far. I just think I have different material when I'm high. I just think that it's sort of like an alternate setting for Chase's flow of consciousness. And I truly do hope that at some point during this, you were able to maybe follow my through line and think of it as interesting. I did notice one point where I just said red, green, and blue, like just like that was connected to anything. I don't quite remember how it was, but I'm sure, I'm sure I'll think about it later. And that part seemed kind of weird, but besides that, I've been, at least interested in my own thought. I had lasagna earlier; it was very good. We had some Texas garlic toast too, which was also really good. It was kind of like a sloppy boy dinner where I ate an entire personal lasagna and 2 pieces of garlic bread. Well, they were small pieces of garlic bread. They were like little, like baguette slices of garlic bread. They're good though. It was a good sloppy boy meal, and probably one that would not have enjoyed as much if I was not high. But I was just barely getting high when I started eating. It was really good. I also have some Marionberry pie and some 2 gallons of Tillamook ice cream, 1 vanilla and 1 peanut butter chocolate. The peanut butter chocolate one I ordered the other day, and the vanilla one I ordered today when I ordered the Marionberry pie, because Marionberry pie tastes really good, and especially good when you're high. And I'm high right now, so I'm probably gonna go back out and eat that. Even if, unless I get more lasagna, because honestly, that lasagna fucking was really good. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just stay in bed and fucking jack off and fall asleep. I don't know. The night is young. We'll see. But I do know one thing. I'm probably gonna pee again in the next 5 to 10 minutes, probably. See, this is the interesting part, because I've been doing so much to stop myself from, going down derivative paths of thought. But like I'm now, that's sort of got me in a loop, because it's like, okay, I can't end because that's a derivative path of thought. That's something that's a preconceived idea that I had, is that I gotta end at this time. I gotta end at a specific time. So I'm sort of, it's like it feels wrong to stop, even though I said 45 minutes and now it's 50 minutes. It's sort of interesting. So I'm gonna say, I wonder if there's like more that I can milk out of this. I don't think so. I think I've already gone down enough derivative paths of thought where I'm thinking, or like interrupting my own thought process to a point where it's like not at all related to what I thought last. Enough times where it's like, yeah, okay, well I've told myself that I was gonna do that, so let's go on. Let's go for it. Yeah, I think that'll do. Thank you very much for listening, if you have indeed listened. I'm sorry that we didn't have anything yesterday. I got high, which is what I am now. And Robbie was playing Monster Hunter, and Jackson was streaming, and I didn't want to bother them. And so I decided to do this, which is a little self-indulgent, I admit, but it's also fun, and I hope that it was fun for you too. I don't know what I'm gonna call the video, but I'm probably gonna upload this and say, hey Robbie, here's the audio. You can listen to this and edit it if you want, and we can post it tomorrow, or I can edit it, no problem. And because I think it would be fun, immediate satisfaction to just see what Robbie thinks. And maybe he'll show it to someone else. I don't fucking know. I'm going. Okay, I gotta end now, because we're going up to 51 minutes, and then now I feel like I gotta go to 55. No, I think below 2:30, then it still feels like flat. Rounding to the nearest 5, of course. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna go pee. And then I'm probably going to make a decision on whether or not I'm going to get back into bed, or I'm going to go eat some Marionberry pie. But that is beside the point. You know what, Chase? If you want to do this again and you feel regret, just do this again later, but not right now. You can get high another time. Fucking edibles cost like fucking $25 for 10 of them. So no problem. So I can do this anytime I want. Request and see if you want Robbie or Jackson to do it too. I don't usually suggest that, because it's like I want my series to be my own, but like honestly I don't give a shit. I think this would be interesting. Anyway, it's getting really close to 2:30, so I'm gonna end this one. Thanks for listening. Bye.